to see you one last time.
This video brought to you by Wilson's Heart, exclusively for Oculus Touch. We recently brought to you some of the most disturbing elements from Overwatch's lore, but we have barely scratched the surface on the horrific histories behind some of the game's heroes. So here is even more disturbing lore. The story of the Shimada brothers is one of the most tragic in Overwatch's history, but it's the details that make it really disturbing. When Genji and Hanzo's father passed away, Hanzo became the leader of the Shimada crime family, but his younger brother wanted nothing to do with it. The two eventually came to blows, and details about the fight are scarce, but it seems that Hanzo may have actually attacked Genji from behind. From the looks of things, he struck him with a sword that cut from his right shoulder to his waist, a blow that went so deep it even tore the tapestry on the other side of him. This dishonourable kill might even imply that Genji was unarmed and trying to avoid the fight entirely, something that, if true, makes Hanzo's attack all the more disgraceful. Hanzo believed Genji was dead, and he grieved for his brother for years, refusing to pick up a sword ever again and leaving his family in penance. Hanzo wandered the world, trying to put the spirits of his past to rest, and perhaps even hoping that someone out there could put him out of his misery as well. However, unknown to Hanzo, Genji survived, and with the help of Overwatch he was rebuilt. But his life came with a price, and he was required to help them destroy his old family. The boy who refused to fight, rejected a life of crime and violence, would now be inducted into Blackwatch and used as its greatest weapon against the Shimadas. Half man and half machine, it's no surprise that Genji was at war with himself. And although Zenyatta has helped him to find peace, it's now his brother Hanzo whose mind is in turmoil, as he comes to terms with learning that his brother is still alive, and has somehow forgiven his terrible deed. Another of the most disturbing tales in the world of Overwatch is Mei's story. The Earth has been at the mercy of drastic climate change for years, but its cause remained unknown. In an attempt to find a solution, Overwatch set up eco-points in remote locations around the world. Many great scientists, engineers and researchers joined Overwatch, and among them was Mei. Along with 5 others, she was stationed at Eco Point Antarctica when disaster struck. A huge polar storm battled the installation, cut off communications and left the scientists stranded. Running out of supplies and facing inevitable death, they entered cryostasis in a last-ditch effort to survive until help arrived. However, rescue never came, and it was nearly a decade later when the facility was finally uncovered. The 6 pods remained intact, but tragically, 5 of the scientists would never leave their icy cocoons. Mei's friends and colleagues had died in their pods around her while she slept, which is tragic enough in itself. But what is even more disturbing is that there is evidence that the pods were actually Mei's creations.
I helped to develop a cryostasis solution for the space program.
So it would seem likely that she worked on the pods for the Eco Point as well. If this is the case, the guilt she must live with every day is truly horrifying to comprehend. This could explain her constant puns and humour, perhaps relying on it as a coping mechanism to deal with her tragic backstory. However, as much guilt as Mei must feel, it's surely only a drop in the ocean in compared to Overwatch's chief engineer, Torbjorn. His dislike and even hatred of Omnics is something that is evident throughout his character's story and voice lines.
You ask me, the Brits have their heads on straight. Omnic rights. Tuh.
But why does he maintain this attitude when so many other characters have forgiven or at least made peace with the Omnics? It all stems back to the Omnic crisis. During the war, many of the weapons the Omnics used were not of their own creation. It was in fact Torbjorn's designs they used to slaughter innocents across the globe. In particular, he was directly responsible for the creation of the Bastion units, the machines that made up the majority of the Omnic forces and remain a terrifying symbol to humanity even today. However, it doesn't stop there. He also worked on the Titans, giant machines designed to build skyscrapers. But when the Omnics rose up, they repurposed the behemoths to become some of the most powerful weapons of war the world had ever seen. Torbjorn has more blood on his hands than the game's most ruthless villains, and while he might not have pulled the trigger himself, he certainly handed the killers the gun. We saw in Torbjorn's comic that he recently met Bastion and the two are now travelling together, and perhaps this will help Torb to forgive himself, but Bastion's backstory is also pretty disturbing when you stop to think about it. Just like any other Bastion unit, our hero would have been used as a devastating weapon of war. However, the Bastion units in general don't seem to possess the same level of AI as we see in other Omnics. So while someone like Zenyatta might feel emotions as a result of his actions, the Bastion units are just machines performing a function. They have no more of an emotional connection to shooting their gun as a kettle does to boiling water. However, when one Bastion unit reawoke, we saw that it now seems to want to avoid conflict and explore the world. But this leaves us with a question. Has Bastion's AI developed? Is he now coming to terms with the terrors he and the other Bastions performed in the war? It could be that his AI is so young and underdeveloped that it's the equivalent of a child's mind, perhaps trying to lock away those memories of war. There are many nefarious companies and groups in the world of Overwatch, but one of the most disturbing has to be the Vishkar Corporation. In the wake of the Omnic crisis, many of India's inhabitants were left homeless, and Vishkar was responsible for building new cities using their hard light technology. To do this, however, they needed people with the ability to control the hard light, and the company would take them wherever they could find them. Symmetra, for example, was pulled out of her life and inducted into a training academy, never to return home. But that is only the beginning. Vishkar sent her on missions around the world to uphold its corporate interests and expand their influence. Symmetra thinks that by doing this she's helping people, but Vishkar is willing to pay any price for progress. When the company came to Rio, they destroyed the offices of a rival firm in a massive explosion that also wiped out most of the favelas. The fire spread quickly, killing and maiming the innocents caught in its way, but to Vishkar, this is just the price that must be paid. The company then promised to make the lives of the people of the city better, but instead imposed controls on them, enforcing curfews and their own brand of law. They even used the populace as a cheap labour force, controlling them with powerful sonic technology. Do you have any more disturbing lore from the world of Overwatch? Let me know in the comments below. As always, this is James for Curse saying thanks for watching and enjoy the game.
And to see you one last time.
This video brought to you by Wilson's Heart, exclusively for Oculus Touch, bringing you an interactive mystery experience unlike any other.